Welcome to the Life Curation Podcast. I'm your host, Irina. Together, we will explore thoughts, inspirations, and conversations that feed our soul, spark the mind, and nourish the body. Thank you so much for being here to learn and grow, and for walking this journey called life with me. Welcome to another episode of the Life Curation Podcast. And today is a special episode because it is the 1 year anniversary episode. So a year ago, I kicked off this podcast, and what a journey. And also on this point, I would like to thank all the guests that I have been able to talk to during this year, and I'm very excited to what's to come. So today's topic is close to my heart, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, and it's the topic of where is home. And I really was faced with this question more deeply in 2013, 2014, when I was really torn between staying in Vancouver or moving back to Zurich. For a year, I had this feeling that I needed to decide between these two places that I considered home. And it was a whole process, learning that I don't need to decide. And I would just like to share with you a little bit of that journey. So some of you may know that 2013 was quite a switch year for me. Many things happened. It started with quitting my job and going into self-employment, separation and divorce, as well as my brother passing away. So my living situation and my apartment in Vancouver felt like such a solid rock in my life and a place that stayed stable in times when everything else seemed to be on very rocky ground. And in 2014, I spent almost 3 months in the spring in Switzerland because I wanted to see how it is to potentially live there, or at least my vision was to split my time between Zurich and Vancouver. And I remember that I had the opportunity to sublet my apartment in Vancouver, or at least I was thinking about looking into it. And just the thought of somebody being in my home felt very wrong. So I didn't, because it was such a sacred space for me. And I had such a big aha moment when I got back to Vancouver. And I remember I opened the door and I stepped into my apartment, and it didn't feel the way I expected it to feel. So I was a little bit disappointed because I felt, or I was expecting to feel this being in my home. And in a way, like I said, it felt disappointing because it didn't feel that way. And then the second reaction was very freeing. And I realized that I can make myself a home anywhere. I can create my four walls anywhere. And that was also, like I said, very freeing and liberating. But that was actually almost already to the end of my process. So maybe it was like the tipping point of my process. Before that, and I think it was in the fall of 2013, I came across this TED Talk by Pico Iyer, which is also linked in the show notes. And he talks exactly about this topic, where is home? And it touched me so much because I felt so understood. So I really encourage you to listen to it or to watch it. And some other people gave me some really good food for thoughts. One of them was my mother. And she said, no matter where you will be, you will always miss the other. So in one way, that can be sad and being like, well, I will always miss something else. But it can again be also very freeing. And for me, it was suddenly like, true. So it actually doesn't matter where I am. Because everywhere I lived, all the people I've met are kind of part of me. And I also take that with me because places and people shape us. So knowing that living in Vancouver, I will always have a longing for Switzerland. And being in Switzerland, there will always be a little bit of a longing and missing for Vancouver or the Pacific Northwest or possibly even other places, right? And another input I got, and that was by a numerologist, and because I'm born on the 22, so September 22nd, and she said the 2 is really sowohl als auch. So that's, it sounds a little bit better in German, but it really means as well as. And again, that gave me this thing, I don't need to decide. I don't need to decide. And also, I can change my mind. So, again, this gave me this freedom of, as well as. And when I then decided to move back to Zurich, I gave myself the permission to change my mind and move back to Vancouver if I wanted to, or wherever. So now I've talked quite a bit about physical home. And yes, 4 walls for me are quite important. And I do like to have a home base. However, people also make me feel home. And it doesn't really matter how long I know that person. And I'm sure you've had the same, that with some people you feel at home instantly. And you can call it soul connection, you can call it previous life connection, whatever it is. For me, it actually doesn't really matter why or what it is, but these people, they are home. And I feel it has to do with this sense of belonging, this feeling seen and heard on a deeper level that is maybe consciously not touchable. And another aspect of feeling home for me is safety and security. Meaning where I can relax and surrender and just in a way where my whole system can soften. And that can be on a broad spectrum of a country. And, I've talked about Vancouver and Zurich. And of course, both of these cities are very safe. And it is also, again, with people, feeling safe with somebody. And of course, all that being said is, how can I foster these feelings within me? So now I talked a lot about the outer circumstances, but what is my inner world? Can I feel this safety and security within me, this sense of belonging, this connection with myself? And for me, there is not one or the other. And again, sowohl als auch. It's both, because one influences the other. So the way I feel inside, if I'm in my place of home within me, of course that's going to influence how I feel where I am on a physical level or location. And what's happening around me influence how I feel within me. So this is a little bit of a longer intro, but I wanted to share my where is home, and I'm absolutely thrilled for you to hear 6 other people sharing their where is home. So we have Kirsty, Bettina, Irina, Chris, Katrin, and Miriam, who all share what home means to them. And I also encourage you to think about, what do you need to feel at home? What and who makes you feel at home? And in what places do you feel at home? And how can you create and foster that feeling of home within you, as well as in your surrounding? Have fun, feel inspired, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Irina, for asking me to speak on this topic, which is very close to my heart. My name's Kirsty, and I was born in England, and I moved to Canada 16 years ago. Many things contribute to Canada being a permanent home for me: becoming a permanent resident, getting married here, buying a house here, becoming a citizen, having children here. I'd say that home is where I can be fully myself, and that's anywhere that my husband and our 2 children are. But it was really important for me to become a citizen of Canada so that I could come and go from the country more freely, so that I was the same nationality as my children, and most importantly, so that I can vote. I didn't have to give up my British citizenship, and England will always be home, which leads me to think that home is more of a fluid concept. But the pandemic has reminded us that borders do exist and can close and cut us off from our other homes. So it's really useful to be a citizen when I'm trying to get back to my permanent home if I were to go away. I really love the saying that home is where the heart is. And in that case, mine is spread out globally with all my friends and family who live in different countries and cities. I feel very fortunate to have many international friends who share the experience of having different home countries and who understand the emotional, spiritual, and cultural ties to physical places. I recently heard the Talking Heads song, "This Must Be the Place," and the lyrics of that song really speak to me. Thanks, Andrina. I'm so grateful for having this time to sort of reflect on this, and I'm really looking forward to visiting you in your home, or you coming back to your old home to visit me. Talk soon.
Mein Name ist Bettina. Ich bin in der Schweiz geboren und aufgewachsen, in Bern geboren, in Oberhofen am Thunersee aufgewachsen. Und als ich dann ausgezogen bin, ich auf Bern gezügelt und dort gelebt. Bevor ich dann auf Vancouver gezogen mit meinem Partner, das war jetzt vor 6 Jahren. Seitdem wohnen wir in Vancouver. Und aufgewachsen bin ich mit und sehr stark in der Schweizer Kultur. Also beide meine Eltern sind Schweizer. Beim Überlegen über die Frage, what is home, was bedeutet daheim, was ist daheim für mich, sind dann eigentlich wie 3 Antworten für mich aufgekommen. Das eine ist wie das tägliche daheim. Das andere ist das Lebensdaheim, habe ich es jetzt mal genannt. Und das dritte so das Daheim in sich selber. Und ich muss zugestehen, dass bevor ich auf Vancouver gezügelt und weg von daheim, ich mir nicht so vertieft habe, Gedanken gemacht über das, über Heimat und was das heisst und bedeutet. Das ist sicher der Wegzug, der da ganz viel hat, gute Gedanken dazu provoziert. Das tägliche Daheim für mich ist der Ort, wo ich wohne, der Ort, wo ich täglich ein- und ausgehe, wo ich schlafe und wo ich mich wohlfühle, wo ein Safe Space ist und wo ich gerne Zeit verbringe. Und wie ich habe gelernt mit dem Wegzug, kann ich das fast ein bisschen überall haben, solange ich das mit meinem Partner zusammen gestalte und mache. Das war eine schöne Erfahrung, das zu lernen, weil ich hatte so ein bisschen Angst, so, wie ist denn das? Kann ich mich so daheim fühlen, jemand anders, als ich in Bern habe? Und habe gemerkt, ja, das kann ich. Für das tägliche Daheim. Nachher das Lebensdaheim ist für mich mehr, wo komme ich her, von wo komme ich, was sind meine Wurzeln und wo gehöre ich vielleicht auch ein bisschen her. Und es ist auch so ein starkes Gefühl von Homebase für mich. Und das ist ganz klar, meine Wurzeln sind in der Schweiz. Und da fühle ich mich auch nach wie vor sehr verbunden mit der Schweiz. Warum wohl, habe ich mich auch gefragt. Ich nehme an, das hat damit zu tun, dass ich dort bin aufgewachsen und wo meine ganz viele Erinnerungen daheim sind. Und auch, wo nach wie vor die wichtigsten Beziehungen eigentlich sind. Ausser mein Partner, der mit mir da ist. Aber meine Familie und engsten Freunde sind nach wie vor in der Schweiz und mit denen fühle ich mich auch immer noch sehr verbunden und sind nach wie vor auch noch sehr wichtig für mich. Und dann das Dritte, so das Daheim in mir selber. Das ist etwas, was nach wie vor noch sehr am Wachsen ist. Ich auch noch am wenigsten, glaube ich, mit dem habe gewidmet von diesen 3 Schichten. Aber was ich damit meine, ist so das Home within yourself, wo man so das Gefühl hat von Boden unter den Füßen, also der Place of quiet confidence. Und das bin ich sicher auch noch am Suchen und am Ausbauen. Aber das Wegziehen vom Daheim, Bern, Schweiz, zu Vancouver hat sicher dazu geführt, dass ich jetzt eigentlich wirklich so für den Rest des Lebens wie mich ein bisschen mit einem zerrissenen Herz lebe, weil ich es an beiden Orten super finde, für unterschiedliche Gründe. Und egal an welchem Ort ich bin, vermisse ich irgendetwas vom anderen Ort. Vielleicht heisst es in diesem Fall daheim im Herz Platz machen für mehrere daheim.
My name is Irina. I currently live in Zurich and also part-time in Berlin. I grew up in Munich, or more in a suburban town close to Munich. And I would say that my personal journey, trying to find out where my home is, started right after I finished high school, because I really wanted to explore the world, to see what's out there, and see also how it would be to live in other places. So I went to the other side of the world to find that out, and I lived in Sydney for a bit. And from then on, maybe you could call it even restless. I then went to Vienna for my studies, then back to Sydney, then to Munich, and finally I ended up for a job in Zurich, where I stayed for almost 8 years now. And still, I sometimes have to be in Berlin just to, be in this other place that I really like, because it's exciting. And there's also Munich, which is my hometown. And then there's also Sydney, where I spent the most spectacular times of my life also. So it just recently happened that I was really struggling, understanding or forming for myself the definition of home. Where do I want to be? Where do I belong to? Which location should it be in the end? Where I want to settle? Do I want to settle? And in the end, I realized, and maybe it was just by getting a message from a friend who was in that moment in the other place from where I was, asking me where I was, but that it wouldn't matter, because she just wanted to check on me, and if it could be a call or a walk or whatever. So she just wanted to know how I would be. And that was very beautiful, because in that specific moment I realized that maybe I don't have to decide if Zurich is my home, if Munich is my home, or Berlin, or maybe even Sydney, where my heart still is in a way. So maybe it's just the little moments that I can enjoy with people exactly where I am, and at the same time feeling that there are also people in other places that love you and that support you. And for me, that is home. Knowing that there are people anywhere out there in this world who love you and support you and do these little crazy things with you. And even if it's just going for a walk or write you a message how you are.
Mein Name ist Katrin und ich bin in München, Deutschland, geboren. Von München sind wir durch den Beruf meines Vaters weiter umgezogen nach Frankfurt, von dort nach Konstanz, in Konstanz einmal umgezogen und schließlich in Reutlingen. Das hat dann mit sich gebracht, dass ich bereits in frühen Jahren auf 6 verschiedene Schulen gegangen bin. Und von dort bin ich dann selber mehrere Male umgezogen als junge Frau, und schließlich hat mich die Liebe nach USA gebracht. Das Endlieben hat mich zurück nach Deutschland gebracht. Eine weitere Liebe hat mich in die Schweiz gebracht. Und nun lebe ich seit über einem Jahr in Schönburgund in Frankreich. Das erste Mal habe ich mich mit dem Gedanken Heimat, oder was ist Heimat für mich, bei einem Klassentreffen nach über 20 Jahren Abitur auseinandergesetzt. Und ich habe meine Klassenkameraden, die ihr ganzes Leben im selben Ort geboren worden sind, gelebt haben, aufgewachsen sind und dort kleben geblieben sind, in meinen damaligen Augen, zum Teil beneidet, zum Teil bemitleidet. Beneidet, weil sie ein festes soziales Netz haben und auch ihre ganze Großfamilie, Tanten, Onkels nahe bei. bemitleidet, weil ich das Gefühl hatte und auch immer noch habe, dass mein Umherziehen, mein schon frühes Nomadenleben mich geöffnet hat für Dinge, ja, die sehr speziell sind und die andere so nicht erfahren durften. Und ich hatte auch das Gefühl, dass eben besagte Klassenkameraden, die so ihr ganzes Leben am selben Ort waren, mehr oder weniger, auch ja, eine gewisse Art von Scheuklappen getragen haben. Es gibt denn ja den Ausdruck Home is where your heart is. Und für mich bedeutet das eigentlich Heimat und es bedeutet es auch immer mehr, dass ich sie mit mir mitnehme. Das heißt, der Ort, wo ich sein kann, wie ich bin, und der mir die Gelegenheit gibt, mich weiterzuentwickeln und aber auch zu meiner besten Version weiterentwickeln kann. Natürlich sind auch Äußerlichkeiten wichtig. Das eine ist, also man nimmt überall hin mit seine Lieblingskaffeetasse und die Fotos der Liebsten. Aber auch habe ich gemerkt persönlich, dass gewisse Rituale und Gewohnheiten, wenn man die sich für sich so gefunden hat, dass man die überall durchführen kann, dann bringt das, egal wo man ist, gleich schon mal von Anfang an ein ziemliches Gefühl des Zuhause-Seins. Und schließlich ist es bei mir so, dass für mich ganz wichtig ist, die Kontakte zu all den Menschen zu halten, egal wo ich bin, die mir lieb sind. Das ist natürlich meine direkte Familie, aber auch viele Freunde. Und schließlich ist es so, dass ich im Moment keinen Partner habe, zumindest keinen zweibeinigen, aber ich habe einen Vierbeiner. Und dieser Vierbeiner, der darf mit mir überall hin mit und der sorgt sehr dafür, dass egal wo wir sind, immer gleich ein Stück Heimat entsteht. Abschließend würde ich noch ganz gerne sagen, dass meine Erfahrung mir sagt, dass sich die Wertigkeit und auch die Version, was ist Heimat für mich, sich im Lauf des Lebens verändert. Und an manchen Stellen, manche Dinge innerhalb dieses Heimatgedankens werden weniger wichtig. Zum Beispiel kann es sein, dass es nicht mehr wichtig ist, wo man ist, sondern mit wem man ist und was man so um sich rum hat. Und ja, ich wünsche jedem und jeder, dass sie im Lauf des Lebens ihre eigene Version von Heimat finden kann und sich darin wohlfühlen kann und dass das richtig und gut ist.
Hello, I am Chris Corbett. I was born in the UK, raised in America, and have now been living in Switzerland for many years. So I'm what the Swiss call a multiculti. I identify with each of those countries and feel at home in all of them. Obviously, the land I was born in, I have a lot of family there, and raised with British parents, I have a very deep sense of the culture, and I'm very comfortable when I'm there. And when I'm in a pub waving around my British passport, I feel very British. In America, I also have family, a couple of sisters, and a lot of friends, of course, from growing up there and going to school there. And I feel very much at home there also. And then, of course, here in Switzerland, it's been so many years that I've lived here that it has become also my home. And I have become such a Swiss that sometimes my friends tell me that I'm more Swiss than the Swiss. Because a friend will say, oh, come over for dinner tonight at 8. And 8:01, I'm knocking on the door. and they come to the door half dressed. What are you doing? And I said, well, you said dinner's a date. And then they said, okay, relax, it's okay. So I identify with whatever culture I'm in. For many years, I traveled for business, and I would go all over the world, the Middle East, Asia, Russia, Africa, all around Europe, America. And I always felt at home in each of those lands because I would be there working alongside the local people, so would have a sense of their culture and how they live, and they would take me in and show me around, and that always felt very welcoming. And of course, when I travel, I try to not look too much like a tourist and blend in with the locals, so as to experience it in an authentic way, whatever that land has to offer. There's an expression, home is where your heart is. And I believe if you can find the heart and wherever you go, and if you learn to live in your heart, to be at peace with yourself, wherever you go, you're in your heart, and therefore you're in your home. So home is where your heart is. And that is your true home. So at the end of the day, no matter where I am in the world, all these wonderful places and all these beautiful people I know, I always try to come from a place that is more heartfelt than just being a tourist and looking at the sights, and learn from each of these adventures in the world and appreciate all the different variety, because home is many things to many people. And when you see somebody in their home country, they're very proud to show off their land, their culture, their food, their music, all these things. And that's a good thing. It's important that we have a sense of being in a world of variety and not a world of one McDonald's where everything is the same. So I appreciate all the diversity, and I'm happy to be at home in my heart.
Hi, I'm Miriam. I currently live in Zurich. I was born in Zurich and also raised here in Zurich, and my cultural heritage is that I am Jewish. In order to share my thoughts here, I asked myself, where would I go if I would be totally broken? Heartbroken or financially ruined, any kind of broken. And it's very clear to me that I would go to Zurich. My parents are here, my family, my friends. I have a very steady support system here. People that would take me in no matter what. And at the same time, I don't feel very Swiss. I actually often feel quite foreign, like I don't know, I feel a bit off or weird. And I have this longing for Israel. And even though I have this longing, I suspect that even if I would move to Israel, this longing would not be satisfied. So maybe this is like a spiritual longing. I don't know. Maybe I just have to live with that fact that I will always be a little bit torn. So here a very simple idea, a simple thought. As I lived in Hong Kong for many years, and I actually moved around a lot recently. In Hong Kong, we had this really tiny, small apartment on the 43rd floor. And I hated Hong Kong for a long time. I didn't feel comfortable at all. But I loved that apartment. Even now, many years later, I still have this vague notion or idea that I will go home to that apartment at some point, even though there is not a plan to go back to Hong Kong at all. It's very intuitive. And it has me wonder that maybe the physical space we spend a lot of our time in holds quite some importance. And this can be any space, right? This can be a house, an apartment, a room, any kind of dwelling, even a boat. But that we pick a place carefully, a space that speaks to us, and where we put effort in it to make it look and feel a way that we can relax in it, put effort into it so that we love it. Pick a smell, a scent that we like, so we can open our hearts and our minds and sleep peacefully. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for all these wonderful inputs and inspirations and meanings of home. And I'm so curious to hear from you, dear listener, how you feel after, first of all, listening to these concepts and ideas of home, as well as thinking about it for yourself. So message me. I would love to hear from you. I really encourage you to go back to these questions that I mentioned in my intro, and they're also in the show notes. And maybe grab your journal and a pen and take a moment to answer these questions for yourself. Thank you for being here, whether it's your first time or you have been listening in for a year. I so appreciate you. And from the bottom of my heart, I wish you to feel at home wherever you are.